The laughter started before I even finished unwrapping the gift. I stood in Leon's lavish living room, surrounded by crystal champagne flutes and designer furniture that probably cost more than I'd earned in a year. It was our mother's 60th birthday party. I held a small, carefully wrapped box, a handmade necklace I'd spent 3 evenings creating. Tiny beads I'd strung together with wire I could barely afford from the craft shop. Leon burst out laughing first, loud enough that conversation stopped. "Did you get that from a thrift store again?" His wife, Priya, covered her mouth with her manicured hand, but her eyes sparkled with cruel amusement. "It's cute for a school project." I froze completely. 20 guests turned toward me simultaneously. My mother opened the box carefully, examined the necklace, and smiled weakly. But she said nothing. Not one word in my defense. Leon leaned back against his leather sofa, spreading his arms wide like a king on his throne. He was grinning, enjoying his audience. "You're 30 years old and still broke, Maya. Maybe it's time to admit success just isn't your lane." The room erupted in polite laughter. Someone clinked their glass. My hand trembled as I set down my glass of cheap wine, the only thing I could afford to bring to the party. "My name is Maya Ahmed." That night, standing in my brother's mansion while everyone laughed at my poverty, I decided I would never let them humiliate me again. I walked home in the rain because I couldn't afford a taxi. The tube had stopped running for the night, and my phone was dead because I'd forgotten to pay the electric bill on time again. Leon's laughter echoed in my mind with every step. Success just isn't your lane. I had exactly 43 pounds in my bank account. I'd checked it 3 times that morning. Rent was due in 3 days, 600 pounds I didn't have, and no idea where to find it. My job at the call center paid minimum wage, and I'd been there for 2 years with no promotion in sight. They kept promising opportunities that never materialized. The rain soaked through my thin coat. I'd bought it at a charity shop 3 winters ago, and the seams were starting to split at the shoulders. Water dripped down my neck, cold and miserable. My mother hadn't called to check if I got home safely. She never did anymore. All her attention, all her pride, all her love seemed reserved for Leon. The golden son with his luxury car dealership and his perfect life and his perfect wife. I stopped under a bus shelter, watching the rain pour down in sheets. My reflection stared back at me in the wet glass, mascara running, hair plastered to my head, cheap clothes clinging to my shaking frame. One day, I whispered to that pathetic reflection, "You'll choke on those words, Leon." That was when the idea began forming. Not revenge, exactly. Something bigger. Something transformative. Complete reinvention. At work the next morning, I sat in my cramped cubicle fielding angry calls about delayed packages and billing errors. The same complaints, different angry voices. My head pounded from lack of sleep. My manager, Stuart, walked past with another supervisor. Their voices carried easily over the low partition walls. I heard him clearly. "Maya's too soft-spoken to ever move up. Nice enough girl, but no backbone for management. No presence." Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like ice splitting slowly before it shatters completely. I stood up abruptly, my chair rolling backward and hitting the partition with a thud. Several coworkers looked up curiously. I walked to Stuart's office without knocking and pushed the door open. He looked up from his computer, startled. "I'm resigning. Effective immediately." He blinked rapidly, confused, setting down his coffee mug carefully on a coaster. "You don't have another job lined up, do you?" "No," I said, voice steady despite my racing heart and sweating palms. "But I also don't have a future here. So, what's the point?" His face shifted from confusion to dismissal.
"Fine.
Clear your desk within the hour." I cleared my desk in 10 minutes. No backup plan. No savings. No safety net. Just terror and a strange, dizzying freedom that made my hands shake as I packed my few belongings into a carrier bag. A mug, some pens, a stress ball someone had given me as a joke. As I walked out of that building for the last time, the security guard nodded at me sympathetically. He'd probably seen this before. I'd just quit the only stable income one had. Rent was still due in 2 days. But I couldn't stay in that cubicle anymore, being small, being dismissed, being invisible, being the girl who was too soft-spoken to matter. I had to become someone else. Someone they couldn't ignore, or laugh at, or dismiss. My friend Tara let me crash on her sofa after I explained everything. She worked nights at the hospital as a nurse, so I had the flat to myself most evenings. I bought a cheap notebook from the pound shop, the kind school children use, and started writing. Business ideas. Plans. Dreams I'd never dared speak aloud to anyone. I wanted to create a company that helped women manage money smarter. Everything I'd never had growing up, financial literacy, investment knowledge, confidence around numbers, understanding of how wealth actually worked. All the tools that could have saved me from this exact situation. Tara came home one morning and found me surrounded by scribbled pages, empty tea mugs scattered across her coffee table, highlighters everywhere. Big dreams, she said, laughing gently as she hung up her coat and kicked off her shoes. Just don't forget to eat actual food while you're planning world domination, yeah? But I kept writing obsessively. Every night, filling pages with ideas until my hand cramped. FemFi, I called it. Financial empowerment for women who'd been told they weren't smart enough for money talk. For women like me who'd grown up believing finance was for other people. It sounded impossible. Laughable even. I had no degree in business, no connections in finance, no money to invest. Just notebooks full of ideas and a burning determination to prove Leon and everyone else wrong. I applied for every grant I could find online. Most required business plans I didn't know how to write. I watched YouTube videos at 3 a.m, teaching myself financial terminology and market analysis, and how to write executive summaries. Tara found me asleep on her sofa most mornings, laptop still open, overheating dangerously on my chest. The family group chat pinged one afternoon while I was deep in research about business registration requirements. Leon had posted a photo of his new Mercedes, gleaming silver in perfect sunlight. Hard work pays off, winking face, the caption read. I stared at the photo for a long time. Sleek. Expensive. Perfectly waxed. Probably cost more than I'd earned in 5 years at the call center, maybe more. I typed carefully. Congratulations, Leon. Beautiful car. His reply came instantly, like he'd been waiting. Thanks, sis. Maybe one day you'll get there. Start small, like an internship or something. Everyone has to start somewhere. My chest tightened painfully. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed and deleted 5 different responses, each one angrier and more bitter than the last. Finally, I just hearted his message and closed the chat before I said something I'd regret. But I took a screenshot. I saved it carefully in a folder on my laptop labeled Motivation. Every time I wanted to give up over the coming months, and there were many times, I'd look at that message. Start small, like an internship. I'd show him what small looked like. I'd show him what I could build from absolutely nothing but determination. Weeks became months in a blur of applications and rejections. My laptop screen glowed late into every night as I sent proposal after proposal to grants, investors, accelerator programs, anyone who might listen. Rejection emails piled up in my inbox like a monument to failure. Not the right fit. Insufficient experience. Try again next cycle. We've decided to pursue other opportunities. Each one felt like confirmation of what Leon had said. Success wasn't my lane. I should stop trying. I ate pasta with just butter because I couldn't afford sauce or vegetables. Sometimes just toast. Tara started leaving groceries on the counter without mentioning it, letting me pretend I'd bought them myself to preserve whatever dignity I had left. I considered giving up daily, going back to another call center job, accepting that Leon was right. Success wasn't my lane. Maybe I should just be grateful for stability and stop reaching for more than I deserved. Then one email arrived that was different from all the rest. Women's Enterprise Initiative. Your pitch has been accepted for in-person review. Interview scheduled for next Monday, 10 a.m. Please bring supporting documentation. I read it 17 times to make sure it was real, that I hadn't misunderstood or imagined it or misread it in my exhaustion. Tara came home to find me crying on her sofa, laptop clutched to my chest like a lifeline. Happy tears, she asked carefully, sitting beside me and putting an arm around my shoulders. Terrified tears, I admitted through gasps and hiccups. But also happy. Mostly terrified, though. The interview took place in a sleek office in Canary Wharf. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Thames, glittering in morning sunlight. Everything was glass and steel and expensive. I wore Tara's blazer because I didn't own one, and my only professional skirt, hastily hemmed with safety pins the night before because I couldn't afford a tailor. 3 investors sat across from me at a long, polished conference table. The one in the middle, Mr. Patel, had kind eyes behind frameless glasses and distinguished gray hair. He let me finish every sentence without interrupting, something I wasn't used to after years of being talked over, dismissed, ignored. I explained FemFi nervously at first, stumbling over words. Then with growing confidence as I saw them actually listening. How women from working-class backgrounds often lacked basic financial education. How that knowledge gap kept poverty cycling through generations like an inheritance. How my own mother had never understood pension schemes or investment accounts or how compound interest worked. When I finished, Mr. Patel leaned forward, steepling his fingers thoughtfully. "You don't need a rich background to build wealth," he said quietly, directly to me. "You need clarity and persistence. I think you have both, Ms. Ahmed." The other investors asked technical questions I barely understood, market penetration strategies, revenue models, scalability concerns. But Mr. Patel nodded encouragingly throughout, and somehow I found answers buried in all those late-night YouTube videos and desperate research sessions. As I left, he handed me his business card, heavy stock with embossed lettering. "Call me next week. I'd like to mentor you through this process personally." I held that card like it was made of gold all the way back to Tara's flat, reading his name over and over, barely believing this was real. I hadn't spoken to my family in months. Not one person had called to ask how I was doing or if I'd found another job or if I was eating properly or even if I was alive. Leon's Instagram showed constant updates, luxury holidays in Dubai with Priya, new watches that cost thousands of pounds, restaurant receipts that exceeded my monthly rent back when I could afford rent. My mother commented on every single post, "So proud of you both." Both. As if I was somehow included in Leon's success just by being related to him, just by existing in his orbit somewhere. I scrolled through the photos one evening, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest, that old shame creeping back like fog. Then I closed the app and deleted it entirely from my phone. I needed to stop measuring my progress against his privilege. He'd started with everything. I was starting with nothing. Different races entirely. Pride can wait, I whispered to myself in Tara's empty flat, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. Mr. Patel had taught me something crucial during our first mentoring session over coffee. Quiet growth beats loud bragging every time. Build in silence. Let success make the noise later. The loudest people are often compensating for insecurity. So, I stopped watching Leon's life unfold online. I focused entirely on building my own, one small decision at a time. FemFi started as a simple blog on a free platform. I posted financial tips for women, how to negotiate salaries without sounding aggressive, understand pension schemes, start emergency funds on impossibly tight budgets, recognize predatory lending. Everything I was learning, I shared immediately. One post went unexpectedly viral. 10 things rich people don't tell you about money. It got shared 40,000 times overnight, spreading across platforms I didn't even know existed. Suddenly, my inbox exploded. Women were emailing me from everywhere. Hundreds of messages daily. Asking questions. Sharing their own financial struggles and fears. Wanting workshops and one-on-one coaching sessions. Thanking me for making finance feel accessible. I set up a basic website using a free template I found online, staying up for 2 days straight to get it functional. Started charging £20 for 1-hour consultations. Terrified no one would pay. Convinced I was being presumptuous. But they did pay. Within 2 weeks, I had 12 clients booked solid. Then 20. Then 40. Then a waiting list. It wasn't much money. But it was real. Momentum. Small, fragile, but undeniably real and growing organically. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Let them think I was still struggling, still unemployed, still the broke little sister with no future or prospects or value. Meanwhile, I worked 16-hour days building something they couldn't see yet, something they'd never believe I was capable of creating from nothing. Leon called for the first time in nearly a year. His voice was cheerful, casual, as if no time had passed at all. "Hey Maya. Mom's birthday dinner next week. Try not to bring another craft project this time, yeah? Maybe just a nice card from the shop." I smiled through clenched teeth, my free hand balling into a tight fist. "Sure, Leon. I'll bring something special."
Great.
7 o'clock. Same restaurant as last year. The nice one in Mayfair. The nice one that charged £30 for starter. The one where I'd felt so out of place and poor I'd barely been able to swallow food. After he hung up, I sat staring at my phone in Tara's quiet flat. Part of me wanted to refuse, to ghost them completely and never look back, to cut them out entirely. But another part, the part that was building FemFi and working with Mr. Patel and growing stronger daily, wanted to go. Wanted to sit at that table with my head held high. Not to show off.
Not yet.
Just to show up. As myself. Unashamed of where I'd been, or where I was going. Unashamed of my journey. I replied to the family chat. "I'll be there." The restaurant was expensive and intimidating. White tablecloths, wine glasses that sparkled under chandeliers, waiters in black tie. I arrived in simple clothes, clean jeans, a nice blouse Tara had given me for Christmas. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screamed success or tried too hard to impress. Leon dominated the conversation immediately and loudly, complaining about a business deal gone wrong. "Lazy employees," he said, shaking his head dramatically. "Nobody wants to work anymore. Everyone expects handouts. No work ethic left in this country." The irony wasn't lost on me. Leon had inherited his dealership from our uncle who'd felt sorry for him after his third failed venture. Priya turned to me with that same pitying smile I remembered vividly from last year. "So, Maya, what have you been up to lately? Still looking for proper work? Any interviews?" "I'm building something of my own," I said simply, cutting my food calmly. Leon laughed, loud enough that other tables glanced over disapprovingly. "Like a hobby? That's nice. Everyone needs hobbies to stay busy and sane." "Something like that," I replied, sipping water calmly, refusing to be drawn into argument. They laughed again, exchanging knowing glances across the table. Poor Maya and her delusions. But this time, I didn't flinch, didn't shrink into myself, didn't feel my face burn with shame or my throat close with humiliation. Just smiled slightly and changed the subject to Mum's birthday cake, letting the moment pass. Because they had no idea what I was building in the shadows. And I wasn't ready to tell them yet. The reveal would come, but on my terms in my time. Mr. Patel introduced me to an exclusive investor network specifically interested in women-led startups with social impact. They wanted to merge FemFi under a larger parent company, Arden Holdings, that specialized in financial services and consulting. "You'd lose public recognition initially," Mr. Patel explained carefully over coffee in his office. "Your name wouldn't be on the public branding. But you'd gain serious scale, significant funding, proper infrastructure, and a full team. Real resources." I struggled with the decision for days, barely sleeping. I'd built FemFi from nothing. It was mine. My name. My vision. My escape from poverty and humiliation. But Mr. Patel said something that stuck with me like glue. "Do you want your name on it, or do you want it to succeed and help thousands of women? Because sometimes you can't have both right away. Ego or impact. Choose." I thought about all the women emailing me desperately for help. About reaching 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more people. About actually making the massive impact I dreamed of when I started this. I chose success and impact over ego and recognition. We signed the complicated paperwork in November. FemFi became an official division of Arden Holdings. My name disappeared from the public website completely. Nobody outside the company knew I was running it, or that I even existed. Including my family, especially my family. Under Arden Holdings' resources and infrastructure, FemFi expanded rapidly from a simple blog to a comprehensive consulting firm. We offered professional workshops, corporate training programs, and personalized financial coaching at multiple price points. Within 6 months, we employed 42 people, real employees with benefits and salaries I was responsible for. I had an actual office with my name on the door, though that door was in a building my family would never visit, in a professional world they didn't know I'd entered. My quiet resilience had transformed into real power, decision-making power, hiring and firing power, budget authority, the ability to change lives with my signature. I still lived simply by choice. Still took the bus most days. Still wore charity shop clothes sometimes, though now by preference rather than desperate necessity. But I had real savings now. Security. Investments. A future I'd built with my own hands and countless late nights and sheer stubborn determination. Leon didn't know any of this because Arden Holdings carefully shielded individual division leaders from public records. On paper to outsiders, FemFi belonged to a faceless corporation, which was absolutely perfect for what was coming. My mother called late one evening, her voice tight with worry that she'd never once shown for me during my struggles. Maya, love. Leon's having a rough time. Lost his job, made some terrible investments. The dealership closed last month. Maybe you could talk to him? Give him some advice? You always were sensible with money. I paused, phone pressed to my ear, processing this information. He'll never listen to me, Mum. You know that. He never has. She sighed heavily, the sound carrying years of enabling. You're still a sister. Family helps family, doesn't it? I closed my eyes, remembering all the times family hadn't helped me. When I'd been evicted. When I'd had no food. When I'd been mocked publicly at her birthday party. That's what makes it hurt so much, Mum. After he hung up, I checked Leon's social media. Still public, though the posts had stopped abruptly 2 months ago. No new cars. No holiday photos. Nothing but silence. Gossip spread through family friends on Facebook, which I monitored through a fake account. Leon had defaulted on a major business loan. The dealership was closing. He was job hunting desperately, borrowing money from our already stretched parents. I read the news with a genuinely heavy heart. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Just sadness for the golden boy who'd fallen so far, so fast, so publicly. Leon's Instagram went completely dark within a week. Priya stopped posting about designer handbags and expensive brunches and luxury spa days. Even my mother's effusive comments became rare and cautious, no longer gushing with unconditional pride. I heard through gossiping cousins that Leon was job hunting desperately, struggling badly, borrowing money from our parents, who were already stretched financially thin from helping him avoid complete bankruptcy. The same parents who'd watched him mock me cruelly at that birthday party and said nothing. Who'd never once asked if I needed help or support when I was sleeping on a sofa. Part of me felt vindicated. The universe finally balancing scales I'd thought would stay forever tipped in his favor. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of the family drama. Tired of comparing our lives and measuring worth by their standards. Revenge, I'd learned through this process, wasn't loud and dramatic like in movies. It was quiet. Sometimes it was simply living well while others fell apart, building something meaningful while they lost what they'd taken for granted and never appreciated. Leon called at midnight on a Tuesday. I almost didn't answer, my finger hovering over the decline button. But I did answer. His voice cracked immediately, raw and vulnerable. Maya, do you know anyone hiring? Anywhere? I'd take anything decent. Sales, management, whatever. I really need work. Silence stretched between us across the phone line. All those years of mockery hung unspoken in that pause. Every insult, every dismissal, every laugh at my expense, every humiliation. Finally, I said quietly, send me your CV tomorrow. I'll see what I can do. Really? Relief flooded his voice, making him sound younger, desperate, vulnerable in ways I'd never heard. Thank you. God, thank you. I mean it. I really mean it this time. Send it tomorrow morning, I repeated simply. I didn't tell him I was managing director of Arden Holdings. Didn't mention I could hire him with one email to HR, one signature on a form. Not yet. The timing wasn't right yet. He wasn't ready yet. 2 days later, Leon received an official email from Arden Holdings' HR department. Professional. Formal. Impressive letterhead. We'd like to invite you for an interview regarding a sales position within our financial services division. Please confirm your availability for next Tuesday at 10 a.m. He called me immediately, voice bright with desperate hope and gratitude. Maya, you're a lifesaver. I knew you had connections somewhere. Maybe success does run in the family after all, right? I smiled faintly, alone in my office, looking out at the London skyline. Maybe it does, Leon. I'll nail this interview. They'll be lucky to have me. I've got years of experience, loads of contacts. I just need someone to give me a proper chance. Good luck, I said simply, keeping my voice carefully neutral and professional. Thanks, sis. I owe you one. Really. I won't forget this. After hanging up, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at the gold nameplate positioned prominently. Maya Ahmed, Managing Director. Tomorrow would be very interesting indeed. I'd waited a long time for this. Leon put on his best suit early that morning, slightly worn now, the cuffs a bit frayed, but still presentable enough for an interview. He practiced humility in the mirror, though it looked forced and unnatural on his usually arrogant face. They'll be lucky to have me, he muttered, adjusting his tie for the third time. I've got experience. Networks. Contacts. I just need a proper chance to show what I can do. Priya kissed him goodbye at the door, straightening his collar. You'll do great, love. Maya's friend must really believe in you to set this up. Make her proud. He walked into Arden Holdings' reception area confident, shoulders back, chin up, completely unaware of the storm waiting behind the glass doors. I watched from my office window 3 floors up as he checked in with security, straightened his tie again nervously, smiled at the receptionist with his old charm that had always worked before. My assistant, Keisha, knocked softly on my door. Mr. Ahmed has arrived for his interview, Ms. Ahmed. Thank you, Keisha. Give him 10 minutes in the waiting room. Let him see the walls, read the plaques, absorb the atmosphere. Let it all sink in properly. She nodded, understanding immediately exactly what I meant and why. Leon sat in the sleek waiting room, accepting expensive coffee from the friendly receptionist. The furniture was modern and expensive. Everything spoke of success and money and power. Behind her desk hung a large framed poster in the corporate style. FemFi, a division of Arden Holdings, empowering women through financial literacy. He chuckled to himself, reading the familiar name. FemFi. That women's project Maya had tried starting ages ago. He remembered her mentioning it once over an awkward phone call, her voice full of naive hope. Guess they bought her out or something, he muttered, smirking to himself. At least someone made money off her little hobby project. Good for them. The receptionist glanced up but said nothing, her expression remaining carefully and professionally neutral. On the walls around him were photos. Women in business workshops, smiling and engaged. Financial literacy events with crowds of diverse attendees. Success stories printed in elegant frames with impressive statistics. Leon sipped his coffee, bored, checking his phone for football scores and news. Just another corporate office. Nice enough, but nothing special. He had absolutely no idea what was coming. The assistant appeared in the doorway precisely on time. Mr. Ahmed, the managing director will see you now. He stood, straightening his jacket one final time, checking his reflection in the glass. Managing director. Very good sign. Senior person handling his interview personally. Maybe Maya's contact was higher up than he'd thought. Maybe this would be even better than expected. She led him down a long corridor lined with employee photos and achievement plaques and awards. Through glass walls, he glimpsed busy offices, people working intently at computers, professional atmosphere throughout. Very impressive operation. He could definitely see himself working here. Good environment. Proper company. They stopped at a door. Frosted glass. Gold lettering that caught the fluorescent light. Maya Ahmed, Managing Director, Arden Holdings. Leon's heart stopped completely. His brain struggled desperately to process the words, rearranging them, trying to make them mean something different, something that made sense.
Maya.
His sister Maya. Managing Director. Absolutely impossible. Please go in, the assistant said pleasantly, opening the door wide. I rose slowly from my leather chair as Leon stumbled inside, face draining completely of color. Good morning, Leon. Please sit down. His jaw worked soundlessly like a fish. He stared at me, then at the office, the massive executive desk, the stunning city view, the awards lined up on the wall, the expensive furniture, then back at me in complete shock. You work here? I run here. I corrected gently, gesturing to the chair across from my imposing desk. Please sit. He collapsed into it rather than sat, his legs seeming to give out beneath him. Silence stretched between us, heavy and cold and suffocating. I could see him trying desperately to reorganize reality in his mind, to make it make sense. His little sister, the failure, the broke one, behind this desk. Impossible. Finally, he stammered. So the job? The interview? Is it still? I folded my hands calmly on my desk, the same hands that had wrapped that handmade necklace he'd mocked so cruelly. I reviewed your CV personally, Leon. Very carefully. Unfortunately, you're not the right fit for this company. Not our culture. His face went from pale to flushed red. Maya, please. I need this. You can't just. I can. I interrupted softly but firmly. And I have. The interview is over. Thank you for coming in. He sat frozen, unable to process it. His little sister, the broke failure who couldn't even afford proper birthday gifts, sitting behind this desk, in this office, in this position of absolute power, rejecting him completely. Thank you for coming in, Leon. I repeated professionally. Keisha will show you out. I have another meeting shortly. Leon stumbled through reception on unsteady legs, past the FemFi posters he'd mocked just minutes earlier, past the receptionist who'd watched the whole thing unfold in silent understanding, past the security guard who held the door. Outside, he leaned heavily against the building's glass exterior, breathing hard, trying desperately to process what had just happened. I watched from my window 3 floors up, feeling no joy whatsoever. No triumph. No satisfaction at his humiliation and shock. Just quiet release. Like finally setting down a heavy bag I'd been carrying for years. That's enough, I whispered to myself and to the ghost of the girl I used to be. Keisha appeared at my door moments later. Are you all right, Ms. Ahmed? I nodded slowly, truthfully. I am. Thank you, Keisha. She smiled slightly, professionally. He deserved that. I read his CV. The arrogance came through on every line. Maybe he did deserve it. But it didn't feel like victory or revenge. Just necessary closure. Just drawing a boundary that should have existed years ago. Just protecting myself finally. Days passed in normal routine. Then Leon sent a long message to my personal phone at 2 a.m. I saw it when I woke up. Apologies. Excuses. Promises to do better and be a better brother. He said he'd been jealous of me somehow, insecure, wrong. That he'd taken his own failures out on me unfairly. That he was sorry for everything he'd done over the years. I read it twice, carefully. Considered my response for a long time. Then I closed the message without responding at all. I wasn't his little sister anymore, desperate for approval and validation and scraps of affection. I wasn't the woman who'd stood in his living room holding a homemade necklace while everyone laughed at my poverty. I'd become someone entirely new. Someone who didn't need his validation or his apologies or his belated recognition. My silence spoke louder than any response ever could. It said, I've moved on completely. You should too. 3 months later, a major financial magazine featured my story prominently in their Women in Leadership issue. From call center to corporate director, Maya Ahmed's remarkable journey. My photo graced the glossy cover. Professional, confident, unrecognizable from the soaked girl who'd walked home in the rain 2 years ago. The article detailed FemFi's explosive growth, Arden Holdings' success in the financial sector, my specific mission to help working-class women build generational wealth and break poverty cycles. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly shared the article online enthusiastically. "So proud of our Maya," they wrote, as if they'd supported me all along. As if they hadn't watched Leon mock me in silence. Leon shared it too. No caption. No comment. Just the article. I wondered what he felt, posting it. Regret? Shame? Pride? I'd never know. My mother called, crying emotionally. "I always knew you'd make it, darling. I always believed in you from the start." I listened politely, didn't argue, didn't correct her revisionist history. Just said thank you, and ended the call quickly. The article was flattering, well-written, professionally photographed. But I barely noticed the attention or fame. I had 3 important client meetings that day and a major workshop to prepare for 200 attendees. Success, I'd learned through this entire journey, wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about building something meaningful while they weren't watching. I visited my mother one quiet Sunday afternoon, bringing flowers. She hugged me tightly at the door, whispering emotionally, "I always believed in you. From the very beginning." I pulled back gently and smiled. "No, you didn't, Mum. But that's okay. I forgive you." She pulled back, hurt flickering visibly in her eyes. "Maya, that's not fair to say." "I forgive you," I repeated softly but firmly. "But I won't pretend the past didn't happen. We can move forward, but not by rewriting history. Not by pretending you supported me when you didn't." As I left an hour later, I saw Leon's old Mercedes parked outside, dusty, dented, clearly not running anymore. A garden ornament now, a relic of his former life. I looked at it for a long moment, felt nothing but distant sympathy for the man who'd had everything handed to him and lost it all by taking it for granted. My phone buzzed. "Keisha, your 2 o'clock is here early. The new mentorship program applicants are waiting." I walked toward my car, toward my next meeting, toward the life I'd built from absolute nothing. From 43 pounds and a sofa and a torn notebook full of impossible dreams that everyone had mocked. Grace, I'd learned, was the best revenge. Not because it hurt them more, but because it freed you completely. Because it let you move forward without the weight of bitterness. The story of Maya, who was mocked, ended that night in Leon's living room. The story of Maya, who succeeded, began the moment I stopped caring what they thought and started caring what I could build. And that story, the real one, the one that actually mattered, was only just beginning. There were thousands of women to help, futures to change, a real legacy to build. Leon could keep his apologies. I had important work to do.